Part 1. Basics of consent. Let's break it down. Consenting to sex is an active mutual process of willingly and freely deciding and negotiating sex of any kind with someone else. Another quick way to remember what consent is, we can think about FRIES, because who doesn't love FRIES? FRIES stands for Freely Given, Reversible, Informed, and Specific. Consent is freely given. This means you have ownership over your own body and you have agency anytime in giving others consent to your body. This stays true regardless of what you do or where, what time it is, or where you are. You always have a right to choose when, where, and how to share access to your body. This is why consent can only be freely given or voluntary. It can't be obtained through manipulation, power threats, or violence. Consent is reversible. Can be withdrawn at any time. If you said yes now and you don't want to later, you can always say no. Consent also expires. Saying yes now does not mean you are consenting to a behavior in the future, just as consenting in the past does not mean consent exists now. To give consent is to be informed. A person has to know that they are giving and or receiving consent. It has to be mutual because all people need to understand and agree with what is happening. A person cannot give consent if they are unaware of what is happening due to being unconscious, blacked out, or incapacitated due to drugs or alcohol. Consent is active and enthusiastic. This means an outward demonstration, either with words or actions that clearly demonstrate yes. Silence is not a yes. Lack of active resistance does not imply consent either. Be aware that drugs or alcohol, not knowing someone else well, can influence your interpretation of an action. Consent has to be specific. Consenting to one thing does not mean a person is consenting to other acts. In this way, consent is really about continued communication. While we've made it through the FRIES acronym, it's helpful to remember that consent is always a process and needs to be an ongoing conversation. At Smith College and in Massachusetts, there are specific laws and policies related to consent. You can find them here or read more about them online or in the student handbook. Consent is really all about communication and listening. When we practice good listening and communication skills, this helps us respect the needs and rights of others, which is good for sex and life in general. Communication, as with most things in life, is an ongoing process. It's important to communicate what you don't like and what you do like. This could look like having conversations with yourself ahead of time, coming up with goals about what you do want to talk about beforehand, thinking through likes, dislikes, boundaries, and even styles of communication can be helpful. In having these kinds of conversations, you are establishing trust and setting the scene for all kinds of other important conversations that should take place around sex and relationships. Asking and listening for consent. Here are some ways to ask and listen for consent in the heat of the moment, but don't forget that talking about it before when you're not half naked is always better. Asking specific questions can help each person feel clear about what works and doesn't work for themselves and their sexual partners. Some questions that are useful to ask before, such as, "What should I pay attention to?" or "Where do you see this going today?" are helpful ways to know beforehand what might be a good stopping point and can help give mental placeholders of where to check in. These are just some of the basics, but practice will give you the confidence to be more creative and comfortable when having these conversations. Signals of consent and non-consent. Reading the signs is just as important as talking about things, and sometimes these signs will determine if people are even able to have a conversation and give consent in the first place. First, let's talk about red flags or warning signs. These are signs that you should stop or intervene. This can look like you or your partner being too intoxicated to gauge or give consent, a partner asleep or passed out, hoping your partner will say nothing or go with the flow, intending to have sex by any means necessary. These are unacceptable and clear signs that you should stop. Orange signs are signs that can help you know to check in and pause and talk. These include not being sure what the other person wants, feeling like you're getting mixed signals, not having talked about what you want to do, assuming that we'll do the same thing before or last time, your partner stops or is not responsive. Green signs are signs to keep communicating and having fun. This can look like partners coming to mutual decisions about how far they want to go, partners clearly expressing their comfort with the situation or feel comfortable or safe stopping anytime. Green signs are signs that everyone involved is still excited and wanting to continue. But what if someone doesn't care about what consent is? And what are some clues? Examples include acting like they're in a hurry, acting like you owe them sex or they owe you sex, not asking how you're feeling or what you want, reacting with anger, resentment, self-injury when you don't immediately say yes to sex, not seeming to have personal boundaries, and more, are all situations that indicate people involved are not ready to give consent. If any of these things are happening, do yourself a favor and remove yourself from that person or situation immediately. Additionally, if you see these things happen, intervene as an active bystander. We've looked at a lot of ways that consent can look like in conversations and contextual clues, but there are more ways to understand and learn about your own relationship with consent. Here are a few practices for yourself and others that you may want to do in order to feel more confident in being able to give and receive consent. And always remember, you can always think about fries. Ask yourself, is it freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific?